A man only begins to rot the moment he learns to smile at what he should walk away from. Think about it. You weren't destroyed by a war. You weren't destroyed by poverty. Hell, you weren't even destroyed by her. You were destroyed the day you started tolerating the collapse of your own standards just to keep someone who no longer fears losing you. I've seen it countless times in friends, even in myself, at different stages of life. A man sharp-driven with so much potential slowly becomes a shadow of himself. Not because he failed, not because of external challenges, but because he clung to a relationship that silently eroded his core, demanding he lower his bar piece by piece. He thought he was being patient, loving, understanding. But what he was really doing was consenting to his own quiet destruction. So let me ask you, brother, are you perhaps unknowingly destroying yourself right now? So why are we talking about this? Why does it matter so much? Well, Confucius, that ancient sage, he wasn't just some dusty philosopher talking about abstract concepts. He was a practical man. He knew that a broken home breeds a broken nation. He saw the family unit as the fundamental building block of society, and for him the home, and by extension the state, begins with a man's silence in the face of what he called feminine disorder. Now let's be clear, when we talk about feminine disorder, we're not talking about attacking women or their inherent nature. Not at all. We're talking about a lack of discipline, a disregard for boundaries, a hostility to order. Traits that, when left unchecked, can sow chaos in any relationship, any home. Confucius understood that virtue thrives in order, and chaos, no matter how beautifully packaged, is corrosive. And that brings me to something deeply personal. I remember early in my journey, or seeing it in someone very close to me, those first subtle signs. A missed commitment, a slight disrespect for a boundary, a small outburst that was quickly smoothed over. You tell yourself, oh, it's just a bad day, or she's passionate, or I'm being too rigid. You think you're being patient, loving, understanding. But what you're really doing often is being afraid. Afraid to set the standard, afraid to lead, afraid to admit the truth. The person you care for in that moment lacks the discipline necessary for true partnership. And if they lack that, how can true love, which is built on respect and restraint, ever truly flourish? Jason, reading time, 2:55. So what does this feminine disorder look like in real life? What are the red flags, the telltale signs of a woman who lacks this crucial discipline? First, she demands, but she doesn't contribute. Think about it. She expects emotional labor, financial support, constant attention, but her own input is minimal or worse, negative. I once had a client, let's call him Mark, who was constantly exhausted because his partner always needed to be entertained, supported, uplifted, but never offered the same back. She'd say, "You need to make me happy," but never, "How can I make us happy?" Second, she accuses, but she doesn't self-reflect. This is huge. Every argument, every problem is always someone else's fault, usually yours. There's no space for introspection, no ability to say, maybe I played a part in this. It's a constant blame game. I remember a relationship where every time I calmly pointed out something that hurt me, it immediately spun back into how I was being too sensitive, too demanding, or just flat out wrong for even bringing it up. It felt like I was speaking to a wall. Third, she thrives where no expectations are set. She loves the void of standards. If you don't have clear boundaries, if you don't articulate what you need, she'll fill that space with her own chaos. She sees a lack of boundaries not as patience, but as permission. It's not about malicious intent always. It's about an ingrained habit of pushing until resistance is met. And if there's no resistance, she just keeps pushing. Fourth, and this is critical, she has a profound freedom from consequence and an allergy to correction. When you try to set a boundary, when you try to discuss a problem, it's met with hostility, tears, or outright defiance. It's not her independence that's dangerous, it's her fundamental hostility to order. She'll turn every reasonable boundary into an attack on her freedom. Every polite request for growth becomes an accusation that you're trying to control her. This is the woman who will, without ever lifting a weapon, leave you a hollowed-out shell of yourself. You'll be smiling for pictures but dying inside. And this is the most insidious part. She comes with this incredible ability to make you feel like the villain when all you did was ask her to grow. When you try to establish a healthy norm, she'll weaponize her emotions, her past traumas, even her beauty to derail the conversation. Tears, accusations making you feel guilty. Why are you being so mean? You don't love me if you ask me to change. That's the woman Confucius truly feared. Not because she was evil, but because she was untouchable by principle, untouchable by the very men who dared to believe in peace and order. She's not dangerous like a snake. She's dangerous like a mirror reflecting back to you the broken man you became just to keep her. And that, my friends, is not love. That's the slow, painful decay of the masculine spirit disguised as commitment. So what does this feminine disorder look like in real life? What are the red flags, the telltale signs of a woman who lacks this crucial discipline? First, she demands, but she doesn't contribute. Think about it. She expects emotional labor, financial support, constant attention, but her own input is minimal or worse, negative. I once had a client, let's call him Mark, who was constantly exhausted because his partner always needed to be entertained, supported, uplifted, but never offered the same back. She'd say, "You need to make me happy," but never, "How can I make us happy?" Second, she accuses, but she doesn't self-reflect. This is huge. Every argument, every problem is always someone else's fault, usually yours. There's no space for introspection, no ability to say, maybe I played a part in this. It's a constant blame game. I remember a relationship where every time I calmly pointed out something that hurt me, it immediately spun back into how I was being too sensitive, too demanding, or just flat out wrong for even bringing it up. It felt like I was speaking to a wall. Third, she thrives where no expectations are set. She loves the void of standards. If you don't have clear boundaries, if you don't articulate what you need, she'll fill that space with her own chaos. She sees a lack of boundaries not as patience, but as permission. It's not about malicious intent always. It's about an ingrained habit of pushing until resistance is met, and if there's no resistance, she just keeps pushing. Fourth, and this is critical, she has a profound freedom from consequence and an allergy to correction. When you try to set a boundary, when you try to discuss a problem, it's met with hostility, tears, or outright defiance. It's not her independence that's dangerous, it's her fundamental hostility to order. She'll turn every reasonable boundary into an attack on her freedom. Every polite request for growth becomes an accusation that you're trying to control her. This is the woman who will, without ever lifting a weapon, leave you a hollowed-out shell of yourself. You'll be smiling for pictures but dying inside. And this is the most insidious part. She comes with this incredible ability to make you feel like the villain when all you did was ask her to grow. When you try to establish a healthy norm, she'll weaponize her emotions, her past traumas, even her beauty, to derail the conversation. Tears, accusations making you feel guilty. Why are you being so mean? You don't love me if you ask me to change. That's the woman Confucius truly feared, not because she was evil, but because she was untouchable by principle, untouchable by the very men who dared to believe in peace and order. She's not dangerous like a snake. She's dangerous like a mirror reflecting back to you the broken man you became just to keep her. And that, my friends, is not love. That's the slow, painful decay of the masculine spirit disguised as commitment. This is where the true danger lies, because the decay of the masculine spirit isn't a sudden seismic event. It doesn't roar like an earthquake, throwing everything into chaos at once. No, it's far more insidious. It drips like a leaking pipe, bit by bit, moment by moment, day by quiet day. until the man who once walked with the confidence of a lion commanding his own space now tiptoes like a tenant in his own kingdom. He's navigating his own home, his own life, as if he's a guest afraid to upset the delicate balance of her moods. He walks on eggshells, where he once walked with purpose. Why do we allow this erosion? Why do men compromise their principles, their peace, their very being, just to keep these relationships? Often it's a deep-seated fear of being alone, a fear of admitting that perhaps this isn't love but something far more destructive. We mistake the rush of chaos for the pulse of destiny. We confuse drama for passion or constant friction for a sign that it must be true love because it's so intense. But let me tell you a hard truth. The woman who cannot regulate herself, who has no internal order, will eventually regulate you. Not through love, not through wisdom, but through fear, through guilt, and through sheer relentless exhaustion. She'll drain you by the hour, picking away at your reserves until you're empty. And when you're utterly spent, she'll look at you and say with a straight face, "You've changed." I've been there. I've seen this play out in my own life years ago when I was younger and less aware. I once believed that the more emotional intensity a relationship had, the more real it was. The constant highs and lows, the dramatic arguments followed by passionate reconciliations, felt like the ultimate expression of connection. I thought, this must be what love feels like when it's truly deep and impactful. But slowly, insidiously, that chaos started to define my internal state. My peace became contingent on her mood. My boundaries were constantly tested, then blurred, then erased. I confused the draining effect of constant drama for the effort of making it work. It was only after that relationship finally crumbled that I could look back and see how utterly exhausted I was, how much of my own identity I had sacrificed. I had mistaken the rush of chaos for destiny, and the price was my own calm, my own clarity, my own peace. It was a painful but vital lesson that what feels like intense connection can sometimes just be the slow, quiet erosion of your very soul. So how do we stop this insidious erosion? Confucius taught that the much superior man cultivates himself for the sake of virtue, not approval. He wakes early to discipline his heart, not to win applause. He speaks not to be heard, but to preserve harmony. This is the antithesis of what modern society often teaches us. Today, we're fed this idea that setting standards is oppressive, that having expectations makes you insecure or toxic. We're encouraged to bend to compromise, to accept dysfunction in the name of maturity or love. But brother, expectations are not oppression. They are architecture. They are the pillars that protect your mind, your spirit from the storm of emotional volatility that an undisciplined person can bring. If you don't set the rules, she will, and her rules are terrifyingly simple. She wins or you're the villain. Think about it. When did your home become a courtroom where every interaction feels like a debate you're losing? When did your voice start trembling before you even spoke, because you were anticipating a backlash? There is no peace with a woman who hates peace. And many people today aren't at war with you. They are at war with silence, with calm, with standards. If she is not rooted in a healthy sense of shame for her disruptive behavior, if she isn't truly ready to grow, she is not ready for love, and you are not ready for peace. Or, I vividly remember a turning point in my own life. It was after that relationship I mentioned, the one that left me so drained. I was picking up the pieces and I realized I had no blueprint for building something solid. I'd spent so much time reacting to chaos, I'd forgotten how to create order. That's when I truly started digging into these ancient philosophies like Confucius. I began to understand that my peace wasn't something to be negotiated or sacrificed for another person's comfort. It was non-negotiable. I started setting clear boundaries not out of anger, but out of a calm, unwavering commitment to my own well-being. It was uncomfortable at first because I was so used to compromising. But the moment I decided that my standards were sacred, that my inner peace was my highest priority, everything began to shift. The right people, the right opportunities, and eventually the right relationships started to appear. Because I was finally operating from a place of integrity, not desperation. The core responsibility of a man, then, isn't to be an emotional sponge soaking up all the negativity. You weren't designed for that. You were designed to be a pillar. Strong, stable, holding things up. But pillars collapse when they carry more weight than they were built to bear. And the undisciplined woman, the one Confucius warned you about, she will never stop adding weight. She doesn't want peace. She wants evidence of your obedience. Your exhaustion is her proof that you care. Your tears are the receipts of your love. And your silence. That's all the space she needs to write the story of your defeat. Now here's another tough pill to swallow. Modern men, we're often so starved for kindness, for softness, that we confuse discipline with cruelty. We mistake a woman's quiet resolve for indifference. But true feminine discipline is not cruelty. It is the rarest form of love. It's the kind of love that doesn't excuse her own bad day by lashing out. It's the kind of love that apologizes without theatrics, without needing to be coaxed. It's the kind of love that doesn't seek a crown, just the chance to protect your shared kingdom. Yet, what do? We marry queens of disorder and then expect the palace to stay standing. We mistake criticism for communication. We think being yelled at means we're being loved hard. No, my brother, you're just used to war. Confucius didn't want you to be loved hard. He wanted you to be loved right. This brings us to a fundamental flaw in how men are taught to approach relationships today. We're taught how to attract a woman. We're told to text her, compliment her, please her, seduce her. But we are never ever taught how to vet a woman. We don't learn how to test her spirit, how to observe how she reacts when she's denied, or how she handles boredom, or what her discipline looks like when no one is watching. And so we choose women who perform well in the attraction phase, but lack that formation. Formation isn't charm. It's not charisma, or even just beauty. It's the invisible infrastructure of a soul that understands order, that respects the subtle boundaries of time, tone, and tension. The woman every man should fear has no such formation. She is beautiful, yes, but she is formless. She adapts to what you want until it bores her, then she reforms herself into a new performance for the next man. And what makes her dangerous isn't just what she does to you, but what she turns you into. You become reactive, apologetic for your own masculinity. You delay your mission, moderate your truth, trade your purpose for her comfort. You're no longer building, you're managing her moods, her complaints, your words like a hostage negotiator praying your next sentence doesn't trigger another meltdown. And slowly, your confidence becomes a performance too. I've seen this personally, not just in others, but in my own past. There was a time I thought being adaptable and understanding meant letting my own needs slide, my own boundaries become flexible. I'd try to reason to explain to calm, but my attempts at finding a solution were consistently met with escalation emotional outbursts or a complete unwillingness to see my side. I would try to vet by having deep conversations, but realized later that those conversations were just another performance. I learned the hard way that true character isn't revealed in what someone says when things are easy or when they want something from you. It's revealed in how they react when they are denied, when they are challenged, when they are bored, or when no one is looking. It was a brutal lesson, but it showed me that without that inner formation, without a commitment to internal order, no amount of outward charm can ever sustain a truly healthy partnership. It taught me the absolute necessity of looking beyond the surface and truly seeing who someone is, especially when it's uncomfortable. Confucius warned that when order is lost, chaos doesn't scream, it seduces. It comes with giggles and gifts, with tears and tenderness. The test was never how she treats you when you please her. The test is how she respects you when you deny her. if she cannot lose an argument without punishing you, if she cannot accept correction without attacking your tone, if she cannot sit in stillness without needing attention, she is not ready for you. Because a woman who fears discipline will always wage war on your peace. And that, my friends, is the war modern men are losing not against women, but against their own fear of being alone with their standards. Confucius believed that before you shape the world, you must shape the self. Before you ask for peace, you must become it. And before you let a woman into your life, she must first be able to live under the weight of your values without collapsing. If your values are flexible, if your boundaries are negotiable, if your peace is for sale, then you will attract not a partner but a performer. And the moment you stop applauding, she will leave. Not because you failed her, but because you finally woke up. Waking up isn't a moment. It's a decision, a revolt, a declaration. I will no longer fund disorder with my time. I will no longer confuse access with intimacy. I will no longer confuse emotional noise with depth. The woman every man should fear isn't a woman at all. She is a test, a living mirror of your self-respect. And if you fail to walk away from her, you are not failing her. You are failing your own destiny. There comes a moment in every man's life when the fog clears. Not because the chaos ends, but because he finally stops lying to himself. He stops pretending she'll change. He stops pretending his sacrifice will be enough. He stops pretending that his exhaustion is a sign of love instead of a sign of slow spiritual suicide. Confucius said, "The strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home." But how can there be integrity when the foundation is built on the compromise of principle? How can a man lead when his crown is worn with guilt instead of purpose? Modern men are not broken because they lost women. They are broken because they lost the discipline to walk away from the wrong ones. Because they traded inner silence for outer affection, because they worshipped comfort and called it commitment. And now many sleep beside women who do not respect them, work for futures they do not own, and apologize for instincts that were placed in them by nature, sharpened by history, and abandoned by culture. But here's the truth, Confucius would whisper, if he sat beside you today. You are not here to be liked. You are here to become unshakable. And that kind of man doesn't chase chaos in the form of curves. He doesn't build castles on unstable ground. He doesn't trade his mission for her moods. He studies her before he loves her. He watches how she speaks to the waiter. He listens to how she talks about her father. He pays attention when she's angry. And if what he sees lacks structure, gratitude, patience, or shame, he walks. Not in hate, but in alignment. Because no amount of beauty can justify sleeping beside a storm you were warned about. Your peace is non-negotiable. This narration, this message, it's not a critique. It's not about pointing fingers or blaming. This is a warning. Not just from me, but from an ancient mind whose teachings have outlived empires. Confucius wasn't some monk in a cave. He was a man who looked at chaos and declared, "Order is not a dream. It's a decision. You must decide, not who to love, but what to protect. Your peace, your rhythm, your voice, your sacred masculine clarity. Because in the end, there are only two types of women, the one who respects your values and builds with you, and the one who bends your values and slowly breaks you. The first one requires patience, leadership, and clarity from you. The second one only requires that you stay weak. So, if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. If you've been doubting yourself because she says your standards are too high, this is your confirmation. If you've been apologizing just to keep her from erupting, this is your emancipation. No more. No more clapping for dysfunction. No more negotiating with instability. No more confusing femininity with freedom from accountability. And no more shrinking to keep the peace in a war she started. The man Confucius believed in, the superior man, isn't rare because he's perfect. He's rare because he refuses to betray his own order. Be that man. And if this message cut through your soul like a blade of truth, share it. Because somewhere out there, another man is sleeping beside the very storm you just escaped. Like, share, subscribe. And if you truly believe this message must reach more men, support the link in the description. Not for me, but for every man still drowning in silence, wondering if it's just him. It's not, and now he'll know.